to hope for our lives as we are making this for the Live Well, Live Strong quilt. And I am going to go ahead and share a link for you guys of where you can find more information about the Hope Quilt Block, the blog post that goes with it, because this is the pattern for the Live Well, Live Strong quilt. It's a sew along with 26 quilt blocks. This week, our quilt block is all about hope and how to build hope in your life. So that's what we're talking about. But I do, not only do we do the quilt block, but I also have worksheets for you. So this is a worksheet that is about the building blocks of building hope in your life and accessing that hope when we need it to during tough times or whatever. And it's 2 pages, but I've got extra. Hi, Lynette. It's so good to see you. It's so good to see you. I always love our week of hope. I really do. I love our week of hope. So I have, you can go to Stitches Quilting to get the pattern, and I shared a link at stitchesquilting.com, the Hope Quilt Block, and it has lots of information for you about hope. We'll just talk a little bit about some of the things today, but we'll share that with you. Now, the Live Well, Live Strong quilt comes in this 20 by 20 inch size, which is the foundation paper piecing. And on this one, we make the Hope Quilt Block this little. So if you're interested in that part of the pattern, it is available with the Live Well, Live Strong quilt pattern right now. Right back here is the 60 by 60 inch pattern. That is the classic version. Then over here we have a bed runner to put at the foot of your bed. Or, yes, Lynette, hope does not disappoint. And over here is the negative space version of the Live Well, Live Strong quilt that has it in twin, queen, king, and full. I don't know why I say it in that order, but I do. Okay, let's get started. I am going to share with you my sewing station right here. So let me go ahead and flip the camera so you guys can see what I have done so far. So I have laid out all of my pieces to my quilt block on my design board right here. And I've already pre-sewn this segment right here, just so the video doesn't have to be super long. And I've pre-sewn this one right here too. So these are the 2 segments that I've sewn, and I've sewn these as like almost like a 9 patch. So we're sewing these units together as a 9 patch, and then we sew it all together. Okay, so on these, so I wanted to demonstrate to you guys how to sew this little section right here, these little points. So I'm going to show you these techniques right now. Hi, Linda. Hi, Jane. Yes, we all need hope, don't we? We really do need hope. And tapping into and harnessing that hope can sometimes be tricky when we need it the most. But one of the tips on that is you go ahead. Hi, Liz. Is you have to have hope building blocks that you continually build. Okay, so what we're going to do first when we're stitching this quilt block together is we're going to take this little unit. So what are some sources of hope for you guys? Because we want to tap into all the sources of hope. I know I have my sources that I appreciate, but I would love to know what sources of hope you have. So it might be your faith, it might be nature, it might be quilting or sewing as you just kind of reflect. Now, the first step that we're going to do on this, I'm going to turn this design board around so I can show you what to do. So on these little blocks, I recommend, this is just kind of little wrinkly or whatever, is we are going to press this in half because we're going to sew 4 triangles on the edges of this little square. So one of the best ways to know that you for certain have them kind of square, your triangles are going right into the center of here is, if you could put like a little pressing marks so that you can see those pressing marks as we're putting those triangles on there. So let's go ahead and get started. One thing I do is I start with this pear green color. You guys, of course, can design your quilt any way you want to. So I'm going to make sure that my point of my triangle is matching up with that little line that I just pressed into this quilt block. Because as we build these around, we don't want anything to kind of go a little wonky. That's part of the key of working on the Live Well, Live Strong quilt, is that you're going to want your points to match up with the next points of the next quilt block. So for example, let me bring this one over right here. This is the foundation paper piecing one, so there's paper on the back, but you can see these quilt points right here. and how we want these points to match up as it match up with the next quilt block. So that's why this is a great skill building quilt. So I'm giving you some tips on how to construct this block so that all of your points match up, and that's a key. And that's one of the neat things about the Live Well, Live Strong quilt is it is skill building. So let's go ahead and pull that out. All right, so I just stitched that one on. When I sewed these other ones, I did it in a string feeding method. So it goes actually pretty fast when you string feed it. Now, when I'm pressing this open, I'm trying to press outward. I'm not going to press out my little folded lines I made in there. I'm going to take my next little lime green part quilt block right here, my triangle, and I'm going to match that up again once with the center of my block. And you're going to have some pretty big dog ears on either side, but you can see you just want to make sure that they're matched up, because when you cut out your triangles, if you're slightly off, you can go ahead and kind of be a little bit off. So let's go ahead and just stitch that together. So I'm trying to help you guys to know how to stitch these so you're set up for your seams to match. Okay, singing. Lynette says singing helps her build hope. Music does build hope in me too, Lynette. My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus and his righteousness. I agree with you. A lot of my hope comes from my personal faith. And let me tell you, I tap into that. I try to do something spiritual every day so I can feel something that is growing inside of me. And then when I really need hope, I can lean back on that just very quickly and easily. Okay, once again, I'm laying this triangle down. But singing and music, good uplifting music, helps me feel hope too. So let's go ahead and lay this in. I made sure that point is matching on my folded square. Okay, what other things can build hope? How about knowing that you can do hard things? So leaning back on your own personal life and knowing that you have done hard things in the past can give me hope. So that helps me too. Now I'm going to go ahead and match up this last one side here. Jane is saying, in an effort to lighten us up, a full bobbin gives her hope. So I totally agree with you. When I have a full bobbin, I agree. In my sewing machine, it gives me hope I'm going to be able to make my block. So yes, we do want to make sure that we are fully loaded with our bobbins, right? Okay, here, we're going to match that up, and I'm going to go ahead and stitch this with my 1/4 inch seam. So absolutely, Jane, I love that. I never really brought that analogy from the sewing machine with a full bobbin. Okay, let's press this open. Now I'm going to also show you something that's in the pattern that you always need to make sure that you're doing. So I'm going to take away my pressing mat right here, and I'm going to bring it over here, and see my square, it's kind of raggedy and things like that. I've got my dog ears hanging out, but in the pattern it tells you to absolutely make sure that this quilt block is measured at 4.5 inches square. Okay, so I have a 4.5 inch square ruler here that I'm using, and I do have these for sale at Stitches Quilting if you're wanting them. I also have like the smaller ruler that I use for the foundation paper piecing. So I love this little ruler. It has some texture on the back, so that when I press firmly on this quilt block, it is holding it in place. So I am making certain that my points are matching up right here. So you can see this has like a little shadow of your 1/4 inch seam. So we're gonna trim this at 4.5 inches. So we want each one of these little points to be showing through with your 1/4 inch seam. So this is actually a circular rotating mat. I sell these at Stitches Quilting too. I don't know how many I have in stock right now, but I can always order more. And I am going to just go ahead and lay this right here. And then I'm going to take my rotary blade, and I'm just going to trim just slightly off. I'm going to rotate the mat, make sure my lines are still matching up. So this is really critically important when you are making the Hope quilt block. You want to make sure, because this is like a 9 patch. So So this circle right here, this center square right here is 4.5 inches. So you want every single one of these blocks to be 4.5 inches, and we're piecing things along the way. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this side, and then this is now a perfect 4.5 inch block. We're going to lay it right here. Now you need to do the same thing with your half square triangles, because whenever you cut triangles, I'm giving you larger triangles here, because when you cut a square and then you get a triangle, they don't always come as a perfect square when you stitch them together. So once again, make sure, and this is a common instruction in the Live Well, Live Strong quilt. And the reason why this is a common instruction, because in this little quilt that you can see with all of these points, you're matching up so many points to match along the way. So you do want to make sure your quilt blocks are square. How do you guys kind of make sure as you are sewing that you have that your quilt, your things are squared up? What are some other techniques that we can use? Using a consistent 1/4 inch, right? 1/4 inch seam and cutting accurately. Okay, so we're going to lay this one right here. Let's make sure this one is squared up, our little half square triangle. Because sometimes half square triangles, you know, they just don't quite come out just right. So I have instructed you to cut your triangles a little bit larger, and then that way when you do, but see, I'm using this line on this ruler to go through the center of this. So if you need to, if you don't have like a 4.5 inch ruler, you can also use just a larger square ruler. You can use a 10-inch square ruler or something that's just larger. So that's easy to do too. And I'm just going around, and I find it's easier to do this on my rotating mat. Now, if you don't have a square ruler, what you would do is you would lay this on your mat like that, and you would make sure, and you would come around with your ruler, and you would just trim off all of your excess sides, okay? And get yourself a 4.5 inches, all right? So that's what you would do if you don't have a small ruler. Either way works. Every way works, okay? Just the way that you can get it put together. So let's go ahead and keep sewing this together. I love this quilt block because it really looks like radiating hope coming out. So let's go ahead and sew these together. Now I want to give you another tip to match your points. When you're sewing this half square triangle right sides together with this square in a square unit, we're going to want to go ahead and match these up so that then we can put our pins in there, and then we're going to stitch on this side because we're going to want to stitch right along that 1/4 inch seam, right? So let's go ahead, and I'm going to try to piece together with an accurate 1/4 inch seam, and I'm going to intersect that little spot where we sew it together. So we definitely want to build hope in our lives, and hope can help us feel so much better and can give us strength, right? Okay, so look at how that matched. So we want to have it accurately squared down, and let me make sure I'm doing this right. I'm going to put this triangle right over here like that, so that my teal is kind of matching up to these lime green. It's a pear green. So we're going to go ahead and match that together, but I'm going to stitch on this side so I go right through the intersecting of those stitching lines. Okay, let's go ahead and get this done and put that on there. Then you're going to be, you won't be stretching your fabrics more. You won't be doing anything like that. You'll be having a really good square, flat quilt block. Okay, so let's go ahead and see here. So you guys, okay, look at that. Pretty fun, huh? That looks absolutely fantastic. Okay, so let's go ahead, and I'm going to press this nicely, and we're going to just go ahead and sew this together. So really, it's a 9-patch. It's a 9-patch quilt block, right? And 9 patches are just a super fun, easy quilt block to do. Okay, let's put right sides together with these rows. Here we go. And once again, I'm going to match up my seam allowances so that I can have a good matching block. So let's go ahead and match these up and put those either ways. Okay, what color fabrics are you guys using in your Live Well, Live Strong quilt? Or what fabrics in general are you using? Are you using printed fabrics? What fabrics? Please tell me what fabrics you're using. Are you using some of your older fabrics and making it a scrappy quilt? So please let me know how you are stitching yours together. Here we go. So I've got that matched up, and I've got to match this 1/4 inch seam allowance and these ones. So I'm going to go where there's 2 on the side to match, and then I'm going to just really try hard to have a good 1/4 inch seam there and not let the bumpiness of the fabric kind of bump me through that. So let's go ahead and just move this down, and we're going to pin that to just give us a little bit of extra support right there. So because I'm not going to see that one very well, but let's go ahead and stitch it. Okay, Liz is doing printed and solids really scrappy. I love it. I love it, Liz. And you know what? Your first Live Well, Live Strong quilt was absolutely beautiful. I have got now several versions sewn in these colors, but I'm doing it, and you can see I'm matching this next little seam right here, making sure those line up. Here we go. Let's bring these down, and let's make sure we've got a good match here. So I don't need to really stretch anything because every single one of these little blocks are matched because they are all 4.5 inches square. And we're trying to get a kind of a really nice flat block, especially when we've got so many triangles going on there. Okay, so let's go ahead and take the pins out. Let's see if I had a good match here. Okay, let's lay this down. I think that matches pretty good. What do you guys think? Linda says, I prefer printed fabrics and not too many solids. Linda, I was the same way. Let me tell you, I agree with you. I like printed fabrics too, but then I got to the point where for so many years I've been doing YouTube videos, Facebook videos, and then I have people calling me wanting that particular fabric collection, and the fabric collection is then like 6 years out of print. So I've been using more and more solids in my videos so that people can envision it in their own printed fabric. So I know that's maybe a little weird, but you guys know, I mean, with quilting fabric, it goes out of print pretty quickly. Now I'm pinning mine a little bit lower down. I'm not going into my 1/4 inch seams right here, but I am going to make sure. So I've got pins on both sides, but they're not going to go where my needle is going because I'm a little bit further down. That's just how I pin. Okay, let's go ahead and run this through the sewing machine. I'm making sure I'm holding this nice and square. And then we're going to have this quilt block done. It's just so amazing. Jane says she's using plains for hers. Currently waiting to get more red fabric, and she's been cutting out lots of blocks and will end up with a marathon sewing session. I agree with you, Jane. I like to have things kind of cut out beforehand too, so I have a vision of where I am going. Okay, whoops. I let that get a little mucked up. There we go. I totally agree with you, but I tell you, all the different ways you guys make this quilt is so beautiful, and I'm extremely impressed with how you guys apply your fabrics to these quilt blocks. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. All right, so, and let's take out the pins. Let's see if things matched up, and if my points matched up by pinning those and making sure they were perfect squares. So you can see I've got good matches right there and matches over here too. Okay, let's go ahead and lay this down and give it a press. And I'm just using this little iron. I love to use my big iron, but you know, I would really I have my big iron heated up. Let's go ahead and use the big iron. Let me make sure it's still hot. Yeah, it's not super hot. I used it earlier. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. Now I want to show you guys one last thing before we go. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. Okay, so this is the Hope Quilt Block. I think it is so beautiful. It just radiates out hope. Okay, let me share my screen with you. Let me know if you are able to see my screen. So here is my screen right here. And I'm going to go over, and you can see that I have a blog post for the Hope Quilt Block. The Hope Quilt Block at Stitches Quilting. You just search for Hope Quilt Block, Live Well, Live Strong Quilt, okay? And when you go to the website, I shared the link at the beginning. But here is a whole bunch of information. If you guys are wanting to build more hope in your life, optimism is the faith that leads to achievement. So there's some great quotes in here. Everything that's done in this world is done by hope. Here you can see how I quilted the quilt on the back of the quilt itself. You can see the way I did it, so it looks like radiating hope coming out. It talks about ways to grow your hope, that your experiences, your principles that you believe in, say in health or science or in your faith, whatever that might be, beliefs that you have, faith. These are all things that can build into hope. There's different hope components. So our expectations can impact our hope and our goals, our principles, faith, lots of different things. I've got tons of different stories, uplifting things. Here's Corey riding a unicycle. So all of his work when he was in middle school writing this gave him muscle memory to do this at an older age, in his 60s, right? So, and then there's different symbols of hope. So you guys go over to the Hope blog post. It has got lots of good information here for you. Here's when I lost a ton of money and someone put it on my door of my car. So, you know, hope in humanity is something that really helps too, and hope in kindness. So hopes and acts of service. So there's lots of different information. Here is where you can download your worksheets right here. So you can download your worksheets by, you know, just putting in your name and your email right there. It's a free worksheet for you. So there's lots of information about hope. I was actually impressed as I read about it. I'm going to go back and have my other screen now so I can see you guys. And so, you know, go to Stitches Quilting if you want to. If you're trying to build hope in your life, I've got an amazing blog post of all the different ways that you can kind of have building blocks, building hope more into your life so that when you need to tap into it, it's there for you. So, Linda, thank you. You know, that it really is beautiful quilting. If you haven't yet, grab your Live Well, Live Strong quilt pattern. Join us in the sew along, and I'm getting ready for the course to launch on March 1st. I got to look at what day of the week that is. So anyways, and if you need anything, give me a call or let me know. I'm here for you. But I really hope all of you guys have a great day. I love you guys so much, and I can't wait to see you on Wednesday. On Wednesday, we will go ahead and do the Hope Quilt Block with the foundation paper piecing. And I will teach you the methods and techniques right there and give you some tips and tricks as you sew yours. Okay, you guys, I'll be back on Wednesday at noon and Friday at noon. And after we finish the Hope Quilt Block, our next quilt block is all about love, just in time for Valentine's Day. But this love quilt block, which is in the Live Well, Live Strong quilt, is like an X and an O of love. So anyways, I love you guys so much. I'll be back on Wednesday. See you guys. Ta-ta for now. Oh, today is Wednesday. Oh, Liz, you are so right. You're right. Today is Wednesday, so I'll be back Friday. We'll do the foundation paper piecing on Friday at noon. And then Monday next week, it will be all about love. Thank you for helping me with my week. Anyways, we'll talk to you guys soon. Have a good one. Love you guys.